Welcome to the Transition of Changes Mission podcast show with your host, King Summers.
And your host, Queen Summers.
Thank you for tuning in to one of the best podcast shows in the world. Here tonight, we are talking about no excuses, man. I'm talking about we got a hot topic tonight.
Now that schools are beginning to slowly allow in-person learning again, many parents are feeling a sigh of relief, and some may even have mixed emotions of failure when it comes to their children or children's educational experience while learning at home. So we're going to talk about it this evening. Thank you for listening.
And I'm going to talk about all things that ain't got no excuses all the way up to today, especially during this pandemic time. So stay tuned. We'll get back with you, get everything together. Thank you again for tuning in with your host, King Summers.
And your host, Queen Summers. We'll be back. Welcome back to Transitional Changes Mission podcast show. This is your host, Queen Summers.
And your host, King Summers.
Now that we're back, if you like our show, please visit our website at www.transitionalchangesmission.wordpress.com. We have a lot of great information and a lot of vital information on there that's available to all of our listeners 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Also, if you are enjoying our topics and you would like to comment, you can write to us at tcmissionspeak@gmail.com, or you can call in at 910-985-9090 and let us know what you think. If it wasn't for education at all levels, you wouldn't be able to read, write, speak, think critically, make informed decisions, know right from wrong, effectively communicate, or understand how the world works. Another famous quote that proclaims the importance of education comes from George Orwell. If people cannot write well, they cannot think well. And if they cannot think well, others will do their thinking for them. So while you are listening to our show this evening, I would really like for you to think and meditate on the things that we're saying, because this can help all parents, not just parents that don't know, but the parents that do know. It will give you a broader realization of understanding your child in a better foundation.
Yes, it will. And that foundation is communication. I think that's one of the most important things in a relationship among anything that you do. So with this communication sometimes lead up to frustration when you sit back and think about things. Could you done things better? Who will you point the finger at? Is it yourself? Or do you ever reflect back to what could have been done different or better? So that's why we came up with this show of no excuses. And see, with that, we're going to twist it with, I'm going to release some frustration if some might take it, or it's just something that I'm getting off my chest about. There should have been no excuses about a lot of things. And we all know what we're going to talk about. We're talking about school, homeschooling, your government, your state, your government increment applies of PPE, the pandemic, anything that's on your mind about what you could label out to be no excuses. It's the first form of trying to embrace a change within yourself. You are starting to transition into a better self. So let's all sit back during this first half and come up with things that you're going to hear from me and Queen Summers about what we say is a no excuses maybe in our family or to the world.
Right.
You can do the same.
Right.
We encourage you to call us at 910-985-9090.
Yes, individual personality plays a big part in a child's willingness to learn and their overall disposition when it comes to schooling and education. But most children who are good learners at some point had to become good learners. More importantly, any student who possesses the basic aptitude and receives the right motivation can become a good learner wherever you choose as their parent for them to receive their educational experience. And one of the biggest mistakes that teachers, parents, and the community as a whole can make when it comes to developing students and children who are good learners is to limit learning to the classroom. So it was a lot going on, King, about parents pointing the fingers, the school failed, or teachers was pointing their fingers back at the parents like, it's not just our job to teach your child, it's your job as well. And the parents, because they were so lax at dropping their child off at school every day or to another educator, even though
the pandemic hit.
And even though, nothing is wrong with letting somebody else teach your child, the education always starts with the parent. It always starts in the home.
And it always comes back to the home, even if it's go to school to learn what's 1 + 1 = 2.
Mm-hmm.
When they come home, when you're taking them in the store, they go to practice of the cashier action. Sometimes you might give your kid the money to see if he or her can give it to the cashier the correct amount.
And actually get the correct change because,
you
can give them the amount. And that's one thing that I really messed up as a child. I had a family member who used to give me $50 bills, $100 bills, and I used to run to the ice cream truck, running after the truck, actually. Give him like maybe a 20. He'd give me like 50 cents back. And no. I wish I could find him to this day and get all my change back. But not to say that my mom didn't teach me math. It was basically limited to schooling.
And that's why Transition to Changes is a family-friendly podcast show. Because if it is a young prince out there or young princess out there that's about to get their crown, we try to talk positive energy to them to influence them. That there's no blame to nobody for whatever it is in life. You always reflect back to, and I use this as an example. When I can say my mother didn't try that or my father didn't try that experiment with me, but at the end of the day, when I look back at it, all that money that I gave to the cashier, they probably retired and gone, and I can't find it. But it was just in my mind, I just will continue to say, man, I wish I can go back in time. And a lot of us say that as adults.
Right.
Just to learn from your mistakes or try to guide you in a better way of knowledge to know not to do the same mistake before that you did when you were younger.
Also, if you have children, to prevent your child from making that same mistake. If you already know the mistake, why not be the one to be the buffer to protect your child in advance so they wouldn't have to go through that? So while classroom will likely be the primary source of instruction, intellectual, social, and academic growth should extend outside the walls of the classroom if you really want to enhance a child's desire and ability to learn. Now, some people would argue that reading is the key to success in life. We at Transitional Changes Mission would most certainly argue that at a minimum, reading is a key to success in learning. Children who develop a love for reading, develop a love for learning. Children who struggle with reading, struggle with learning. So I encourage you to help your child develop reading skills and a love for reading by filling their world with reading. Read to your child frequently, 15 minutes a day. Have your child read aloud. Create a family reading time where everyone focus on reading for 15 minutes a day through your own example of reading and by filling your classroom and home with reading materials. You'll create an atmosphere of reading that would demonstrate to your child or students just how important reading is. And scrolling on your phone is not considered reading to your child.
Yes, it's actually reading to yourself. Because I tell you, when you're doing this homework with your kid or doing this remote learning with them, if you participated, a lot of things will start coming back in mind that you don't forget about. Yes, some of those things might not be incremented into your society of what you do. And just like when school teachers was telling you, it was always good to learn knowledge. Mm-hmm. Even the unknown knowledge that you might think that is no use to you in life. So you do the same things to your peers or to your closest ones. And yourself is the main one. Because at the end of the day, you come up with this same saying, there is no excuses.
None.
So we
Now you gotta do a double hand clap on that, kid.
Yes, but we try to keep that knowledge going with positivity to a point to where you can go to Spreaker.com, Podbean.com, Anchor.com, type in Transitional Changes Mission. There you will be able to see all our shows, and all of them are positivity shows. That's what we stand on, and try to influence the society to become better and do this transition into a change and turn it into a mission. Once I said in this show, you will always reflect to the past, and you are starting to connect why they say the past add up to your future, because it ain't nothing but a reflection. When you look at it, it's the movie that's playing in your mind of yourself. And it's the same way of not pointing a finger. As you mature in life, most start to learn wherever you are in life has a purpose and a great meaning, and it will lead to the next day. So embrace what all is coming at you. And that's one way that we try to promote through this pandemic that we was going through, is that we see or we'll learn that this was another opportunity. Since the 2020, like I stated in our last previous show, things started to change. We done been through a recession. And that recession, in my opinion, was on the break to go to another Great Depression. But we scribed out of it. It wasn't President Obama. It wasn't President Trump. It was you. Once your energy started turning as a whole, we changed the whole atmosphere and started climbing up. But it's not to say that another pothole came and we hit it. And now, as we see, as we're going through this journey, we are embracing this journey. And eventually, there will be a time on the news or your media or within your family, you will start to point the finger about maybe your kid not participating in remote learning and going back to school failing. And it might be a process of catching up. That's what some of the things they talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
Then on your finance situation, you're going to reflect back on all the stimulus checks that you got, what you could have done different than the last time. There is a reflection in that you will always keep in your mind today after you listen to the show. And as we talk, some of those reflections should kick in and you'll think about tomorrow. And how you to become a better person tomorrow. Because then you will always exclude that no excuse reason.
Absolutely. And when it comes to education, all some kids experience is control, control, control. When a child feels controlled or out of control, when it comes to their education, they often withdraw from learning. It's important to guide children through the learning process, but it's just as important to allow children to have control of their own learning experience, whether they're at home or in the classroom. Provide your children with the ability to have direct input into their learning choices. A good way to do this is to provide children with options. Every child has learning preferences and styles that are best suited to their way of learning. Some children have a dominant learning style, while others prefer to learn using a mix of learning styles. There isn't necessarily one right or wrong learning style or a mix of learning styles. However, by helping your child discover his or her preferred learning styles, you can use techniques that will improve their rate and quality of learning. There are 7 fundamental learning styles, and I want you to do your research on them. Visual, auditory, verbal, physical, logical, which is mathematical, social, and solitary. And as an example, children who are visual learners learn best by seeing how things work. And conversely, children who are auditory learners, they learn best by listening to things being explained. For younger children, if you have them, it's very beneficial to explore and employ all the different types of learning styles to see which one fits your child, because each child learns different.
And we are learning different every day. I'm telling you, man, this pandemic done brought up so many different changes in a blink of an eye. You might turn on the media and they talking about something different. The vaccine, all this stuff is just like in a blink of an eye. But like I was stating, that you will always reflect back. And the first thing most people do, including myself, that I'm working on right now, is not to point the finger. That relief a type of weight off of you that you can conversate to yourself to say,
you wasn't wrong.
Well, maybe if you ever try to say that you was wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. That can turn the path of being a composer liar, believing in your lies, lying. Just learning how, it can start a path of you learning how to be an honest person. Because the main person that's in that body, have you ever heard the saying, touch that burner?
Mm-hmm.
Only one that's touching that burner is you, and you're the only one that's going to feel that pain.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are connected, we all feel the pain.
Right.
That's why Transition to Change's mission had this current event podcast show, and our mission is to end family homelessness.
That's right. So if you feel like a child failed or the children are failing because they were at home and they